For decades, we've been told to strive for this elusive thing called work-life balance. And most of us picture something like this, a seesaw, with work on one side and life on the other. But here's the problem. Life isn't just one thing. It's a pile of things. It's your family, your friends, paying the bills, cooking, parenting, that group text you forgot to answer. It's volunteering, it's your passions. And we try to load that entire pile onto one side of the seesaw. No wonder people feel like they're constantly failing at balance. It's not you, it's the model. A seesaw will tip to either side guaranteed, with work often hitting the ground first because work feels like the side with the deadlines and consequences. So now here's what most people miss. When the seesaw starts to wobble and you get out of balance, the first thing we try to fix is time. We try to schedule better, we try to optimize our calendars, but balance isn't just a time problem, it's an energy problem. And when I say energy, I mean both physical and mental. It's your ability your capacity to stay patient and present when the day gets messy. Balance doesn't come from having less on your plate, it comes from having more in your tank. And the quickest way to refill your tank is through movement or exercise. Not extreme exercise, not complicated interval workouts, just consistent movement. And once you see that balance runs on energy, movement can't stay buried inside the life bucket. Not because it's separate, but because it supports all of it. That's why the seesaw isn't the right picture. So in this talk, I'm going to give you a sturdier model to use and a couple of tools that you can use this week. So here's the model. A balanced life is built on a three-legged stool, where leg one is your work or purpose, leg two is your family and friends, and leg three is your fitness and health. This is your energy system. I list fitness third because that's where most of us put it, but functionally, it supports the other two. And when the fitness leg is strong, you feel refreshed and recharged and balanced. That doesn't mean that life is a perfect split between work, family, and fitness. It never will be. Just that fitness has to be a leg of the stool right alongside work and family. It might live in the margins on a busy week, and that's fine, but it can't live on the maybe list, because when that leg disappears, everything wobbles, and you're back to an unsteady seesaw. Now, here's how I stumbled into this. It started with a question. I wanted to know how people fit movement into their real life. And so I began interviewing folks in the Boston area for a blog I was writing many years ago. And I'll be honest, I was asking for me too, because it was early in my career, I had 2 small kids, and I was trying to figure out how to stay active without dropping everything else. I didn't speak with pro athletes, I engaged with regular folks who had full-time jobs, technicians, execs, parents, people trying to do good work, show up at home, but still find a way to move. And so the more I listened, the more I realized I wasn't just hearing fitness and time management tips. I was hearing a pattern about stability and balance. So I decided to expand my questions. I was asking things like, what does a perfectly balanced life look like? What is required? What does it feel like when you get out of balance? And what surprised me was this. Almost nobody described balance as having this perfect schedule. People described it as a feeling of having enough time and energy to do your work, show up for the people you love, and still make space for your passions and what you love to do. These conversations, they kept growing and growing, and I collected them and captured the themes in a book called The Everyday Athlete. Not a training manual, it was more a set of real stories about consistency. I'll get back to that mindset in a minute. But as I listened to what balance felt like in these interviews and what out of balance felt like, I noticed a pattern. The people who sounded the most steady and the most balanced didn't have lighter calendars. They made exercise part of their week, sometimes in the margins, sometimes in a real block of time. But it was consistent. For some, it was waking up before the house did. For others, it was going out for that lunch break walk or spin class. Different workouts, but same commitment. And here's the key. Nobody sat there and said in these interviews, oh, Art, the secret to a balanced life is fitness. What surprised me was how often movement showed up in the pattern. And so when movement disappeared, other things popped up, like shorter temper, less patience, less presence. I spoke with one woman, let's call her Megan. She's a radiologist, 2 kids. She's not dramatic, and she told me, Art, I'm trying so hard to be great at work, to be great at home. I can feel myself getting short with everyone, and I haven't moved my body in I don't know how long. And the line that hit me was this. She said, it's not that I don't care about exercise, it's that I can't fit it in. So here's what happens when the fitness leg starts to disappear. Work feels heavier, family feels harder. The little things are bigger than they should, and you start to get out of balance. It's not because you suddenly got weak, but because you're trying to run a high-demand life on a low-energy system. And we understand energy deficits in obvious ways. Like if you don't sleep enough or eat enough or drink enough, your body lets you know it. But when you don't move enough, there's no check engine light that pops up on your forehead. Instead, the signal shows up as you being less patient, having a stiffer body, foggier brain. And that's because movement isn't just burning calories. It shifts your brain chemistry and your stress response. You sleep better, you think clearer, and perform better, not only at home, but at work. So that's right, you're gonna be a better colleague, a better employee, a better boss. So think about taking that walk at lunch and have it be part of your daily schedule. So let's have a quick chat about movement. It can be anything. Like I mentioned, a walk, a swim, a run, or a bike ride. For whatever time you actually have, 20, 30 minutes. But ideally once a week, I want you to do a session that leaves you thinking, okay, I'm back. You know that feeling when you've sort of moved or exercised in a way that actually resets you? Maybe you went a little bit longer than normal, maybe you went a little bit harder than usual, or maybe you just had too many days without exercise, and your first day back, your shoulders drop, and you feel incredible. A friend gave me the best phrase for this feeling, and after this type of workout, he called it cracking the yolk. And there's real science behind this concept. What you're feeling is an acute energy, exercise-induced mood boost. It's caused by the release of this protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's basically brain fertilizer, and it helps your hormone and your cortisol settle down. It doesn't erase your responsibilities at home or at work, but it shifts your internal state so you can carry them with a lot more steadiness. That's cracking the yolk. And it's gonna look different for everyone. Maybe instead of a 2-mile walk, you do a 4-mile walk, or instead of a light yoga session, you go to boxing class, or maybe you go for an evening of dancing. Personally, for me, I'll do a 50-mile ride to a little place called the Harvard General Store in Harvard, Mass. The point is, don't do it to chase a finish line. Do it to reset your nervous system so you walk back into your life feeling less stressed. Now, speaking of stress, I want to introduce something to you that we all feel. It's the moment you start thinking, why am I so irritable right now? It's a gauge I call the crabbiness index. So the crabbiness index, it's your warning system that shows up when you go too many days without movement. Here's how it works. Most of us have a personal number, a window. Maybe you can go 48 hours without moving and you're fine. Maybe it's 3 days. Maybe it's an entire week. And then you don't just feel stressed, you feel super low energy, you feel cranky, everything feels like friction. You feel totally out of balance, frankly. The crabbiness index is your body's way of saying, hey, my system's running low, and if you learn your number, you can catch it early and say, oh, it's been 3 days since I've exercised. Maybe my crabbiness index is rising. It's a signal. And by the way, if you live with other people, they usually know what your number is before you do. So let's make it concrete. Remember Megan? Everyone's been a Megan at some point. She's been sitting at her desk all week. She told herself, Monday, I'm going to the gym. Tuesday rolls around, Friday, now it's the weekend. It's been over 5 days and she hasn't moved. And at home, she's super edgy with her husband and kids, not because she doesn't love them, but because her capacity is just gone. She doesn't need a new productivity app on her phone. She needs movement. She might even need to crack the yolk, because at that moment, it's not about getting more fit. It's about getting regulated again. It's a reset button for her nervous system. So she heads out for a quick run, and her crabbiness index comes down immediately, and she feels ready to take on the day. She feels more steady and more recharged. So this tool is great because it helps you become self-aware of your need for movement. But how do we go about getting consistent fitness to show up in the rhythm of our busy lives? I'd like to introduce the concept of the everyday athlete. We've been taught that athletes are people on TV, but the truth is far more empowering. If you move with intention a few times a week, if you carve out time for your own health and treat it like a priority, you're an athlete. You're an everyday athlete. Not because you're trying to go pro or look like somebody on ESPN, but because you want to show up at work and at home and in your community as the best version of you. That's the everyday athlete concept. Fitness not as a hobby, but as infrastructure for a balanced life. And this mindset is important because it removes that dangerous trap, that all or nothing thinking. If you believe exercise only counts when it's intense or long, you're going to skip it when life gets busy, which is exactly when you need it most. But if you believe that movement is infrastructure, then you keep the third leg in the picture. Now, one important warning, especially for some friends in the audience. The goal is not to make fitness the biggest leg. There's a trap on that side too. I've met people who go from doing no exercising at all to training 20 hours a week for an Ironman or whatnot, and suddenly the fitness leg gets so tall that work and family suffer. That's not balance either, people. The everyday athlete isn't extreme, it's stable. But in reality, life is never going to be a perfect split between work, family, friends, fitness. There are seasons when work's going to get taller. There are seasons when family needs more attention. That's not failure. That's being human. Just don't let the fitness leg disappear. So I want to leave you with this. There's 3 takeaways toward living a more balanced life based on the concepts that I've presented here today. Number 1, stop treating movement as a nice to have. It's not an extra or something you get to when life calms down. Fitness is the third leg. Remember that small and consistent beats big and infrequent. Number 2, prioritize yourself without guilt. Put your oxygen mask on first. Get some movement, then help others. If you don't invest in your energy, you've got nothing to give others. Irritation can and will overtake you. Be aware that your crabbiness index will begin to rise. And don't say, what's wrong with me? Say, what's my system missing? How many days have I gone without movement? That single question turns judgment into action. And here's a shortcut. The third thing is, here's a shortcut. When motivation is low, and it gets low for all of us, commit to exercise with another person. When someone's waiting for you at 6 a.m. or after work, you're going to show up. Make it social. Join a running club. Join a cycling club. Meet a friend for a walk. Because social movement not only gets you moving, it makes you want to come back. And the funny part is you think you're doing it for them, and you are, but you're also doing it for you. So here's my final ask. I want you to stop living life on a seesaw. Build a stool, and tonight, just mentally check your 3 legs: work or purpose, family and friends, and your fitness. Then schedule in 3 days of movement and protect them. I guarantee you'll feel recharged, more creative, more like yourself. And if you take nothing else from this talk, take this. You don't need a new life. You need a life that doesn't wobble, a life you can stand on. Thank you.